Welcome to the Hack Music Theory Show. I'm Ray Harmony and I'm over the moon happy to bring you today's super special episode. What's so special about it? Well, we recently had the great pleasure and honor of sitting down and chatting about music theory and songwriting with one of our favorite musicians of all time, Neil Cowley. Yes, we filmed it, and yes, we're about to share it with you. If you just went, Neil who? Then allow me to introduce the legend. Neil Cowley is an extraordinary composer and pianist from the UK, and here at Revolution Harmony HQ, we've had his latest album, Spacebound Apes, on heavy rotation ever since it came out last year. And if you just googled Neil Cowley, then yes, he has played piano on multi-platinum Grammy-winning albums, including Adele's 21, which is obviously amazing, but we're interested in Neil here, not Adele. So today I'm going to be teaching you his extraordinary hack, which I refer to as the Neil Cowley Technique. This hack is seriously going to make your songs stand out from the crowd, so stay tuned. Just a heads up, this video is divided into two sections. The first section is the inspiring, insightful, and hilarious interview with the man himself. The second section is my lesson on his signature technique. But first, tape. So I'm here with my hero, Neil Cowley.
My hero too.
Far too humble. We just watched the gig here in Victoria at the Jazz Fest. The rhythm section, favorite rhythm section, hiding over there. We got Rex and Evan, and we're going to be talking about the magic that they do as well. But right now it's all about this man, Neil Cowley. So we're going to be doing a lesson on what I call the Neil Cowley Technique, and
I love that.
Which is, I love it too. Thank you for doing it. So it's very much noticeable in Grace, which you've probably heard, though you might not know you've heard it. So yeah, I'll let Neil talk about it, and then I'm going to do an example afterwards. So
Talk about Grace.
well, that technique. You can talk about whatever you want, really. You're Neil Cowley.
Yeah, but we spoke off camera about my technique. You analysed my technique and explained it beautifully. But I just sat and listened to you because you explain it much better than I do. You start explaining it, and I'll chip in. Go on.
Okay.
Because you said about something about my melodies. You put it beautifully, taking your attention away from the left hand while I get away with murder, basically, which I loved. And it's going to take me about 2 days to digest that before I can really reflect on it. But it's a lovely idea. Explain that to me.
So in Grace, I feel like the Grace is coming up to. I checked because I'm a nerd. Before we left, it's coming up to 12 million plays just on Spotify.
Wow.
And I feel like this is really like the Neil Cowley technique shining. So you have the most beautiful melody up on the top, right? So the kind of soprano line, and it takes your attention to that, and then below you have what often starts out like in Grace, like it's kind of normal chords, and then suddenly, like maybe the second time, it's like we start moving into these non-diatonic chords, and it's like, oh, what's happening there?
Explain to me non-diatonic.
So non-diatonic is just not in the scale you're in. So
Okay, good.
You're just using notes that shouldn't be there, naughty
Right.
notes.
Yeah.
Naughty Neil notes, right? Can we call non-diatonic notes that from now? Naughty Neil notes. And
T-shirts. I'm going to get T-shirts, mate. Yeah.
so, but I feel like the absolute genius of the Neil Cowley technique is the and we were talking about, he has a very percussive style of playing.
That you're right with it. Yeah.
And when you
I wanna
slow
be a
it
drummer.
down,
I do. I want to be a
You
drummer.
are a drummer.
I want to be a drummer. Always want to be a drummer.
and what happens when you slow it down, like in the masterpiece Grace, you have this beautiful repetitive soprano line, so the melody notes just keep getting repeated gently, and as they start fading, and the attention starts kind of moving to the chords underneath, they play it again, and so the repetition like keeps the attention, every time it goes, it keeps going back up to that that main melody line, and then underneath, like, he gets away with, as you said, absolute murder. Like, anything he wants to do in the harmony underneath, it's like he can get away with it, and it's absolute genius. So,
oh, thank you. It's interesting the way you say there's a visible layer and there's an underlayer. I think of it in the same way. We talk about it often in a band. That we try. I think it's really important to empathise with the melody, to feel that the melody gives you some kind of emotional content that you can relate to. And so, in order to do that, it needs to be simple in my mind. So, the surface should be simplicity, and the melody should be simplicity. But I try and hide this, what perhaps is the clever bit. You know, I try and hide the clever bit out of a sort of a strange British humility. You don't want to be seen to be too clever because your mates will beat you up. You know, but there is a duck waddling crazily underneath, and it's done to entertain ourselves. We amuse ourselves with the complexity of what's going on underneath, and that keeps us interested because we've got really low boredom thresholds. And then while we're doing that, we're playing this melody which hopefully people will connect with. So. There's this dual layer going on. There's a mask and what we put out to the audience. I just want, because I think you've got to feel something from music. I really don't see what's the point of it being complex if you don't feel something from it. And if they're loving the melody and it makes them think of something and it makes them connect with something, and we can amuse ourselves, and that's a perfect. I suppose in my inner self, I want someone to, perhaps like yourself, to eventually. Maybe my whole life's been about leading up to this moment where someone unlocks the box and goes, oh look, underneath all this lovely melody stuff, there's someone who actually might know what they're doing and is doing something that's of themselves and complex. Because and the reason it's complex in my case is because I never became the finished article at anything I ever did. So I was classically trained. And I rebelled really badly when I was 14 or 15, and so I was given sort of 3/4 of the information, and then I went off and learnt the last quarter, which was completely badly wired. So if I was an electrician, all my plugs would be slightly faulty, but they probably would work. And so I went off and did that, and then I taught myself jazz and funk and soul by ear, and again did it in such a cack-handed way and a strange approach that it's like a rusty squeeze box. That it's rusty in all parts, but when it gets going, the whole thing sounds pretty good. I think I think it sounds pretty good. Yeah. So what was my point? My point was that your melody and the left hand complement each other. That's for us. That's for you. Yeah. So it ties in with what you're saying. I like that.
It's absolutely beautiful.
It was good to talk.
Yeah.
I got a lot off my chest here.
Alright, I hope you're also overflowing with inspiration after that interview, like I am, because I'm super pumped to pour all of that inspiration into this lesson now, where I'm going to share with you how to apply the Neil Cowley technique to your own music. And as always, here on the Hack Music Theory Show, we keep things simple, because music theory is simple. So I've broken this technique down into 3 easy to follow steps. Before I reveal these steps, I just want to clear up any confusion surrounding the terms diatonic and non-diatonic, because we're going to be using them a lot in this lesson. So diatonic just means in the scale, and non-diatonic just means not in the scale. Simples. Okay, now here are the 3 steps. Step 1, write a beautiful diatonic melody. Step 2, harmonize that melody using diatonic chords. And by the way, when we talk about harmonizing a melody, we just mean adding chords to a melody. Okay, now step 3, and this is where it gets exceptionally fun. Reharmonize that melody using some non-diatonic chords. This is where we get to go into those chords and move some of those diatonic notes to those naughty Neil notes we spoke about in the interview. And finally, as a bonus, step 4, we're going to arrange our piano part for lead synth, bass guitar, and drums, and turn it into an electronic, pop-ish song. Right, let's do this. Step 1, write a beautiful diatonic melody. So I'm going to get out of the way here, and you'll see we're in the time signature 4/4. we got 2 bars set up and ready to go. We're at 80 BPM, which is the tempo of Grace. And then regarding what scale to choose to write our melody in, the opening theme of Grace has this beautiful interplay between the 2 modes, Lydian and Ionian. And both of those are major modes, which is why it's so uplifting. By the way, if you haven't heard Grace yet, then please pause this video, take a few minutes to listen, come back and we'll carry on. Okay? And pause. Welcome back. What did you think? Stunning, right? Now let's write the melody. And for this example, we're going to use the Lydian mode, which is what you get when you play all the white notes from F to F. This is what I call the white note hack. It keeps things super simple because you can write everything without worrying about sharps and flats, and then when you're done, you just select all the MIDI and move it up or down to wherever you want. So let's start our melody on the 3, which is A, because F is 1, G is 2, and A is 3. The 3 is the most emotional of all the notes because it's the note that determines whether something is major, which is happy, or minor, which is sad. So by playing the 3 as the very first note you hear in the melody, that is immediately establishing that happy major vibe for our melody. And let's play a couple of those because the Neil Cowley technique also relies on repeating notes, because by repeating a note you keep the attention of the listener up on the melody, and then you can get away with doing naughty non-diatonic chords below, which is step 3. So for now, back to the melody. Let's move up to a sharp 4 next, which is going to be B. And this immediately establishes the Lydian characteristic because you don't get a sharp 4 in any of the other major modes. And if you're new to the Lydian mode, the sharp 4 is just 1 semitone up from the 4 we get in the Ionian mode, aka the major scale. So that sharp 4 is exactly what's giving us that quirky Lydian sound. Just one more quick thing before we move on regarding the rhythm. You'll notice I didn't start the melody on the first beat. I actually started on the next 8th note, so that's the 1 and, which is the off beat. The reason I did this was just because it creates a slightly subtler introduction of the melody to the listener. Okay, now let's crack on with the melody. And because we've already established the Lydian vibe by playing the 3 and the sharp 4, the rest of this melody is going to be super easy to write. So let's continue writing the melody, but now thinking of motifs. And a motif is just a short musical idea which we can repeat to give our melody structure and make it more memorable. And the motif is already showing itself with this 3-3 sharp 4 idea that we can repeat but just lower. For example, from the 2, like this, 2, 2, 3. And now we have continued the melody in a way that is both comfortingly familiar but also captivatingly fresh. And that's the wonderful thing about using motifs. Okay, now we're at the point where we need to be careful of what I call the too much chocolate issue, because our ear wants us to repeat this motif again. So it wants to do the same thing. We've got like 3-3 sharp 4, 2-2-3. So the next in the sequence would be 1-1-2. But that is too much of a good thing, and by playing that motif 3 times in a row, we ruin it. Because we've just fed our listeners too much melodic chocolate, and now they're sick of it. So we don't want to do that, but we can keep some elements of that. So let's keep that 1, but then the next one, instead of doing the repeated note, let's move that down to a 7, which also gives us a really lovely semitone. It's the first semitone of our melody so far, and semitones are obviously more rare than tones, and a tone is just 2 semitones. So semitones are cool, and we're going to use that one, and then instead of going up to the 2 over here, let's create some drama in our melody now, and we're going to shoot all the way up to the 5. So this is going to be our peak of the melody. And whenever you're writing a melody, you always want to think about that, the contour. So this is now taking us right up to that climax of the melody. And instead of having the longer note here, we're also going to cut that into 2 8th notes. And that is going to give us this really cool repetition of the peak note of our melody. and that's going to be once again creating a little bit of variation from what we're expecting with these other longer notes there. Okay, and then to finish it off, let's now use this, the little 1 down to the 7, let's use that as a motif to wrap this up. So let's go down to the 7 and then down to a 6, and then same thing again, we're going to shoot up using this as, you know, our new motif, and we're going to shoot up to the sharp 4. It's only going to be for an 8th note because we've run out of space there, and that's really cool because it means that once again the motif is kind of being repeated, but it's slightly different because it's cut short. And that's it. With that, we're done. But before we listen to our melody, just to let you know that if you want help understanding the modes and how to write great melodies and a bunch of other vital songwriting hacks too, then please download my Hack Music Theory for Songwriting and Producing PDF. The link is below. Alright, without further ado, here is the melody. And we're on to step 2, harmonize the melody using diatonic chords. Now, the easiest way to do this is to outline our chord progression using only the root note of each chord, and then once we're happy with how that's all sounding, in other words, how the melody is sounding in context to the harmony, then we can go and fill in the rest of each chord. Then the other really important thing you always want to be thinking when harmonizing a melody is the harmonic rhythm. The harmonic rhythm is just a fancy way of saying how long you stay on each chord and where you change to the next chord. For this melody, because it is so syncopated, in other words, because there's so many offbeats that are being accented, I think we need to lock this into a nice simple quarter note pulse on the harmony, which is going to anchor it into the 4/4 time signature. Okay, so let's change the grid to quarter notes, and we're going to begin our chord progression on the 1, aka the root. So that's F. And also because the melody is moving relatively fast, let's keep the harmonic rhythm moving relatively slowly. So let's play each chord for 2 quarter notes. So each chord is actually lasting half a bar. Alright, so this F is outlining an F major chord, and that F major harmony is exactly what gives context to our melody above. So in other words, the reason you hear this A as being a happy major third is because of the context of the F. So every time you have a harmony, you are creating a little world, a little microcosm, and any melodic fragment that happens in that harmony is going to be heard in context to whatever the root is of that chord. And that's the same reason why when we go up to the B here, you hear that as being that quirky sharp 4 that we get from the Lydian mode. And the reason you hear that is because of the context of that, you're hearing the relationship between that sharp 4 and the 1, which is F. Now, this is what's cool. We're changing chords here, and I want to go to a G next. So we're going to do a couple G's. Now this G is outlining a G major chord, and this is one of the coolest things about harmonizing a melody. Check this out. The B up here, right up until the 3rd beat of the bar over here, we're hearing that B as a sharp 4. But then what happens is that note stays the same, but underneath it, the whole world changes. So while that note on top has stayed the same, the world underneath changed, so the context of what we're hearing that note as has changed, which means that even though the note hasn't changed, we're now hearing it as a different note. Now obviously we're not hearing it as anything other than B, but we're feeling it as something other than a sharp 4, and we're feeling it as a major third now, because G, G-A-B, we're feeling that B as a major third in our new context, which is the harmony of a G major chord. So it's incredible how this one note has gone from being that quirky, kind of weird note to being like the super happy, uplifting, positive note without changing. Love it. Okay, so from the B, which is now, we're hearing that as a 3, we're going down to root, so 1, 1, in context again to the G, and then we're going up to an A, which we're hearing over the G, we're hearing the A as the 2. And now it's happening again, that that A holds, and we're going to flip the world underneath that, once again changing the context. So we're going to hear this 1A, we're going to feel it, rather, we're going to feel it as 2 different notes. And let's go up to an A now, and this A is outlining an A minor chord. So this A minor harmony is now going to mean that that A changes from being a 2, and 2s have this real kind of floaty, dreamlike quality, to then it's changing to the 1, because we're now in A minor. So this kind of floaty, dreaming quality, suddenly, boom, it lands being the 1, and the 1 is the most grounded note you can have over a chord. So it's really cool, once again, how we haven't actually changed notes, but we've changed the perception of that note, so the feeling around it. Okay, then we're going down to the F, which is the flat 6 over A, and then the E is 5, and then we're shooting all the way up to our sad minor third note here. So this is the flat 3, the C up here, once again over the context of A. Then we're doing the same thing, we're changing here, let's go to a C. And this is super cool because we're going from the C being a sad note to the C being super grounded, and once again the root. So it's kind of cool how this melody over here, that the A is the 1, so it kind of becomes the 1, and then the same over here, it becomes the 1 as soon as the chord changes. So over both of these, the A minor and the C major chords, the melody becomes the 1 of that chord as soon as that chord changes. So really cool. And then obviously the C at the end here, that's outlining C major. So we've got the 1 up here, and then we're going down to the 3, happy major third, down to the 2, which is that floaty element again. Then we're shooting all the way up to the B, which is the 7. So and it's a major 7, so it's creating a nice little bit of tension in that. And that's it. So now what we're going to do is, actually I'll play this to you real quick, and then we'll fill in the rest of each chord. So have a listen to this. Oh yeah, we like the sound of that. So now we can go back and complete each chord. And we're going to do this slightly differently because I don't want the harmonic texture being so thick that it detracts from the melody above. And we're writing this like a piano piece, so we can really think of the melody up top as being played in the right hand on the piano, and then the harmony below is being played by the left hand on the piano. And I'm really hearing just 2 notes in that left hand at a time. So the way we can achieve this minimal approach to harmony is by incorporating some of the melody notes in the harmony. So for example, in the first chord here, we've got the 3 up top in the melody, so we don't need that 3 repeated below in the harmony. So we can actually just play the 1, which is F, and the 5, which is C. And between the 1 and the 5 in the left hand and the 3 in the right hand, we have a full chord, we have a full triad, 1, 3, 5. So separate, the left hand is not a chord and the right hand is just 1 note, but together the left hand and right hand make up a full chord. And this is a really cool technique that's often used on the piano. So now let's move on to the next chord, the G major, and here I'm actually hearing the other note in the left hand being the 3. So B. And the reason for this is because we've only got a really quick 3 up top here in the melody, and then we move straight off to the 1, which is repeated, So that's a lot of 1, and then we go to the 2, and as a result I think we really need the 3 in the left hand to bring the emotion into that chord. Alright, next up we have A minor, and I'm definitely wanting the flat 3, that minor third, in the left hand again, which is going to be C. And the reason for this is the same reason we had for adding the 3 to the G major chord, because we're actually only playing the flat 3 really quickly at the end of our time on the A minor chord. So that's C up here, that's the flat 3, and it's only really quick. So we definitely need more flat 3 in this A minor chord. Also, it's the first minor chord, and in fact the only minor chord we have in the progression, so it's really important that we inject as much of that flat 3, which is what makes it feel sad, into this little section, into this harmony, as possible. So we're happy with that. One thing, just looking at the way the harmony moves, so the left hand here, we're just kind of going from the G and the B up to the A and the C. That's kind of boring because they're just copying, and we always want our melodies to kind of counter each other, and you know, this is touching on counterpoint, which by the way is also, if you want to hack counterpoint, that's also in my songwriting and producing PDF, so you'll have access to that as well if you download it. But what I'm thinking here is let's bring that B, the 3 over the G major chord, let's actually bring that up to a 4, which is the C, and then we have that common note between the two chords. Alright, and with that we're on to the last chord, C major. And here, once again, the melody is only briefly playing the 3, however, this is now our third major chord already in this chord progression. We've already had half of the chord progression major, and just a quarter minor, and then we're back to the last chord and now, which is major again. So I actually want to try to create a bit of a fake balance of major and minor by diluting the majorness of this last chord, and the way we're going to do that is by not playing the 3 in the left hand, and we're going to play the 5 instead, so which is G. So we're going to have a somewhat empty sounding left hand here over that C major chord. We're purposefully hiding the majorness of it, though briefly for this 8th note here in the melody we are hitting the major third, so there's no doubt that it's a C major chord, but we're not emphasizing that because this already has more than enough major. Okay, and we're done, so let's have a listen to the harmonized melody. Here we go. Beautiful, and that brings us to step 3, reharmonize the melody using some non-diatonic chords. It's time for those naughty Neil notes. So the way Neil reharmonizes his melodies using some non-diatonic chords is all part of the genius behind this technique. He doesn't just jump into the harmony and start ripping chords to shreds and replacing diatonic notes with non-diatonic notes everywhere. He approaches it subtly. He approaches it with beauty at the forefront of his mind. And the way he does this is by establishing a diatonic melody, establishing a diatonic chord progression below that melody, and he'll allow you to get to know that melody and chord progression and grow with it, and then when you're both comfortable with each other, he will gently mold some notes into other notes. So he'll take a note that's in the chord and he'll just gently mold that into a naughty Neil note, and that's what we're going to do now. So the first thing to do is to loop this up twice. We're not even going to think about touching anything until our listeners have heard this all the way through twice. And then the third time, we're still not going to change anything at the start, because we really want them to feel like they know where things are going. And then what we're going to do is remind them about the melody up here, keep their attention up here. And as Neil said, the melody, that's for them, that's for the listeners, give them a beautiful tune to sing along to. And then the harmony, the left hand down below, that's for us, to have a little fun with. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to give them the first two chords, but this third chord, the A minor, we're going to go naughty Neil here. So instead of going straight to the A, what we're going to do instead is gently lift the A up to an A sharp. So we're actually taking the root of A minor, taking the 1, and we're augmenting it, and that just means lifting it up by 1 semitone to a sharp root, so a sharp 1. And then we're going to just allow it to sink into the root. So it's going to create this incredible dissonance and tension, and then it's going to resolve into the root for that chord. And then as soon as I saw the A sharp to the A here, and then going to the G, I was like, a motif of naughty Neil notes. What's better than that? So we do the same thing here, where we take the G and we just gently lift it up to a G sharp. And so what we've done there is we've taken the 5 of the C major chord, because the C is our root here for the last chord. So G is the 5, and then G sharp is going to be the sharp 5. So we've just taken the 5 and we've just lifted it up to the sharp 5 just momentarily, and then it's going to sink into the 5 where you want it, and we get this incredible chromatic descending line. So chromatic is just another word for non-diatonic, where we're going down a semitone each time. So obviously the A sharp and the G sharp are chromatic notes, they're not in the scale, and we're getting this amazing melody come out of nowhere where it's going tense and resolve, tense and resolve. And then just to kind of spice things up even more, at the very end I'm actually hearing a little extra naughty Neil note, because as you'll see from the G down to the F, there's actually 2 semitones. That's a whole tone. So how about if we actually shorten the G, so the 5, we shorten that to an 8th note, which frees us up to do one more 8th note, and we do G flat. Yeah, so now let me just move this up a little. So now what we have over the C major chord, we've got the sharp 5, lifting it up, down to the 5, it sinks into the 5, and then as soon as it lands on the 5 and it's resolved, it goes, it kind of slips straight down into the flat 5. So in flat 5 is obviously just the 5 down 1 semitone. And then we end up with this completely amazing semitone run of notes from A sharp to A, G sharp to G flat, and then boom down to F, which is the key note, and the key note is just the root note of the whole key, so F. Oh, that's gonna be tasty. Neil will be proud, hopefully. So now all we need to do to wrap this up is to copy and paste the melody with the diatonic chord progression underneath to the end here. So we now go through the melody 4 times, the third of which is reharmonized with some non-diatonic chords. So in other words, the first, the second, and the 4th times through the melody are with the diatonic chords, and then the third one is the one with the naughty Neil notes. So now we are good to go. And just before we have a listen to our little Neil Cowley inspired song, not a little Neil Cowley, a little song inspired by a big Neil Cowley. No, not a big Neil Cowley, a totally regular sized Neil Cowley. And I'll shut up and get back to the lesson. So the non-diatonic chords are going to work best, especially when you're just starting out with these naughty Neil notes. They're going to work best if you keep 2 out of the 3 triad notes, keep those in the scale. So what you want to do is just nudge one of the 3 notes from a triad. So any one of the 3 notes, just nudge one of those onto a naughty Neil note. If you start moving like 2 notes or all 3, that's pretty serious, like chromatic territory, and it can work, but I would recommend starting with just 1 note. The other tip is when your chords are changing, keep the common note. Don't nudge your common note out. So when we change, you can see from the G here, we went up to that G sus4. We moved the 3 up to the 4, so that's C, and then we held the C over as a common note. So we don't want to shift that common note out of the scale, because then we lose our common note, and the common note is what ties the 2 chords together. That's what makes your chord changes smooth. So keep your common notes and just nudge one of the other notes out of the scale. So, and then you can see we did exactly the same thing here when we went from the A minor to the C major. Once again, we kept the C as our common note, we kept that, and then we nudged the 5. G, we nudged that out to G sharp. So there you go. A little tip to help you starting out with non-diatonic chords. Once you're comfortable with this, then you can start nudging a couple notes from the chord out of the scale and more. So right now, let's have a listen. Stunning. But here on the Hack Music Theory Show, we're obsessed with using music theory to make popular music better. So how can we popify this shizzle? By the way, that's the technical terminology for arranging a piano part for synthesizers, bass guitar, and drum kit. And that brings us to our bonus, step 4, turning piano to pop. This is really easy. All we're going to do is separate out the melody from the harmony. We're going to put the melody on a lead synth, and then the harmony is going to form our bass line, which will be doubled on bass synth and bass guitar. Slap in a 4 on the floor on the drums, and we're done. So let's do it. Copy and paste the piano part down to lead synth, and then we're literally just going to delete the harmony out of this. So we've just got the melody left. The melody does not change throughout the 4 cycles, so we can just loop that up 4 times. And now we're going to copy and paste the piano into the bass synth, and we're going to do the opposite. We're going to get rid of the melody, and now what we're going to do is actually keep only the root notes, because it's pretty common in popular music to not even have harmony as chords. There's just harmony created between the melody and the bass line. So that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to keep only the root notes, which is F, G, A, and C. And then let's throw that C an octave lower because it's getting kind of high. And then to spice it up a little bit, and also to create a nice strong interval from the C back around to the F in the beginning, let's just throw in a quick E, so an 8th note. So we're going to go C, which is the 1, up to a 3, and then we get that cool semitone from the E up to the F. Okay, and that's our bass line. we can copy and paste that over into the bass guitar. Then we can duplicate that for the second time and the fourth time, but not the third time, because the third time we have the different harmony. So let's open that up, and we're going to start with the same thing. Let's delete the melody, and then we're going to keep only the root note again for the F major chord and the G major chord. But then here, when we get to the naughty Neil notes, it's an absolute no-brainer that we are going to use that descending semitone run as our bass line. It's going to sound amazing. So we're done with that. Let's double that into the bass guitar, and now we just need to throw in some drums. And ooh, surprise, surprise! Here is a little drum groove I made earlier. It's super simple, just a basic 4 on the floor dancey groove, because this lesson is not about the drums. We just want something to stomp to. Okay, so we just loop that up 4 times. On the third time through though, under that little descending semitone run in the bass, I'm just going to add 1 kick drum on that 8th note, the 4 and right underneath the end of that run. So under that note there, under the G flat. And to finish our transformation from piano to pop, let's kick the whole thing up 20 BPM to 100. And now we have fully popified this little Neil Cowley inspired piece. Sorry, this little piece inspired by a regular sized Neil Cowley. Anyway, it's been epic. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy. Here is the final version. Lastly, thanks big time to our patrons over on Patreon for supporting Hack Music Theory. And if you want to join our Hack Music Theory revolution and get exclusive content too, then please visit patreon.com/revolutionharmony.